What's up, everyone? And today I'm bringing a deck profile on my Elementsabers. Now, Elementsabers is a very interesting deck that, after testing, to say I actually kind of enjoyed. So if you want to do a deck profile on it. Now, before we get into this video, just want to remind you to subscribe because 90% of the people watching this video are not subscribed. And without further ado, let's get right into the video. First, I run 3 Elementsaber Ina. Ina, once per turn, you can send 1 Elementsaber monster from your hand to the graveyard, target 1 Elementsaber monster, or Elemental Lord monster that has been properly summoned in your graveyard, special summon it, ignoring its summoning conditions. And once per turn, if this card is in your graveyard, you can declare 1 attribute. This card in the graveyard becomes that attribute until the end of this turn. Now, all the Elementsabers have that effect to where they can change their attributes in the grave, mainly because the Element Lords. I run 2 Elementsaber Makani. Makani, once per turn, you can send 1 Elementsaber monster from your hand to the graveyard. Add 1 Elementsaber or Elemental Lord from your deck to your hand. And like Ina, you can change this attribute in the grave. Also run 2 Elementsaber Malahu. Malahu has a once per turn quick effect. You can send 1 Elementsaber monster from your hand to the graveyard, then target 1 face-up monster opponent, target 1 face-up monster on the field. Change it to face-down defense position. I run 2 Elementsaber Lapuila. Once per turn, when a spell trap card is activated, quick effect, you can send 1 Elementsaber monster from your hand to the graveyard. You get the activation. If you do, destroy it. I run 1 Nalu. Nalu, once per turn, you send 1 Elementsaber monster from your hand to the graveyard, target an Elementsaber or Elemental Lord monster in your graveyard, except Nalu, add it to your hand. I also run 3 Elementsaber Lapuila Mana. This is essentially a better version of Lapuila. Lapuila Mana, you can send 2 monsters from your hand to the graveyard to special summon this card from your hand. You can only use this effect of Elementsaber Lapuila Mana once per turn. Apply the following effects depending on which Elementsaber or Elemental Lord monsters were used for that were sent to the graveyard to activate this card's effect. If you sent an earth or a wind, it cannot be destroyed by battle. Water or fire cannot be destroyed by effects. Light and dark, your opponent cannot target with card effects. So if you sent a water and dark, it cannot be destroyed by battle or targeted by card effects. So it can essentially become a big beat stick with protection. Not to mention with the field spell, you really want to use the field spell with this card. I also run 1 Umbra Mirage, the Elemental Lord. Cannot be normal summoned, must be special summoned from your hand by having exactly 5 dark monsters in your graveyard. If this card is special summoned, add 1 monster with 15 or 100 less attack from your deck to your hand. You only use this effect of Umbra Mirage once per turn. If this card leaves the field, skip the battle phase of your next turn. I run the 1 Phosphorus, the Elemental Lord. Cannot be normal summoned, set must be special summoned from your hand by having exactly 5 light monsters in your graveyard. When this card is special summoned, you can destroy all monsters your opponent controls. So that one's kind of like a Regeki. I run the 1 Wuling Glacia, the Elemental Lord. Now this, in my opinion, is the best out of all the Elemental Lords. For simple effect, must be special summoned by having exactly 5 water monsters in your graveyard. If this card is special summoned, discard 2 random cards from your opponent's hand. So it can rip cards out of your opponent's hand. So that's mainly why I run it. And the main way you get these 3 out is that because all the other Elementsabers can literally change their attributes in the grave. So let's say you have 5 Elementsabers in the grave. You can make them all water to bring out the Wuling Glacia. I also run the 1 Neospatian Aqua Dolphin. In this deck, you kind of want to focus on a little bit on like the hand ripping aspect because that is its greatest strength. So I also run Aqua Dolphin. If you can get both Aqua Dolphin and Mulan Glacia, you already discarded most of the cards in their hand. I also run the 1 Chaos Dragon Levianeer. Chaos Dragon Levianeer cannot be normal summoned, must be special summoned from your hand by banishing 3 light and or dark monsters from the graveyard. When summoned this way, you can activate apply the following effects based on the attribute of the monster banished for the special summon. Only light, special summon 1 monster from your graveyard in defense position. Only dark, shuffle 1 random card from your opponent's hand into the deck. Both light and dark, destroy up to 2 cards on the field. So again, this is kind of be like good with like messing with your opponent's hand. So let's say you resolve Moonlight Glacia, Aqua Dolphin, and Chaos Dragon Levianeer on the same turn. That means they've lost 4 cards. Most decks cannot come back from that. I also run 3 Ash Blossom and Joyous Springs. I only run 3 hand traps because the one unfortunate thing about Elementsabers is you need a lot of cards in hand, and you don't really have all the extra space for hand traps. I also run 1 Red Eyes Black Dragon and Dark Magician for my Dragoon play because I do run Dragoon. I run 3 Palace of Elemental Lords. All monsters you control gain 300 or gain attack and defense equal to the number of different attributes in your graveyard times 200. And once per turn, you can add one Elementsaber monster from your deck to your hand, but skip the battle phase of your next turn. I hate it. I hate this card and love it at the same time. I love it because it's a really good field spell, but it has such an annoying downside. Like, honestly, it wouldn't even need that downside. However, the second effect is also pretty good. If an Elementsaber monster in your hand on the field will send a card from the hand or graveyard to activate the effect, you can send that many Elementsaber monsters from your deck to your graveyard instead. I mainly use this card with the Laputa mana. So if I have an Elemental Lords, instead of sending 2 other monsters from my hand to the graveyard, I can send 2 Elementsabers from my deck to my grave, then summon it. I also run the 1 Terraforming. I run 3 Pot of Prosperity. I end up, you kind of have a lot of extra deck space. Like, there's really only like maybe 8 extra deck cards that you really use often. So a Pot of Prosperity is definitely a good option to run. I also run the 1 Upstart Goblin for some more drop power. Now the next one might be confusing to some people as to why I'm running it. The first is Divine Sword Phoenix Blade, Cursed Bamboo Sword, and Infernal Arms Joyuse. Now the main reason I'm running these 3 equipped spells is for the Isolde Details of Noble Knights. Because Isolde has a secondary effect to where you can send equipped spells to your grave to summon a warrior monster whose level equals what was sent. And in practice, that's been one of the greatest effects because it really helps with extending and being able to put up like a proper board. And these equipped spells are not bad either, especially Infernal Arms Joyuse. Joyuse, when this card is equipped to a monster, you can target 1 fire warrior monster in your graveyard, add to your hand. Which basically works with any Elementsabers because they all have the effect to change their attributes, so they can literally send themselves to fire, and you can add it back to your hand. Now the second effect, if this card is sent to the grave because the equipped monster is sent to the grave, you special summon fire warrior monster from your hand. Although you're not really going to be using that one because you don't really have you don't run a fire warrior monster, so you won't have one in hand. I run 1 card Destruction because you want to get a bunch of Elementsabers to the grave. A Rhoda because they're all warriors. Monster Reborn for extending, a Call by the Grave, and a Red Eyes Fusion to round up the spells. I run 1 trap, and that is Elemental Training. Elemental Training, your opponent cannot target Palace of the Elemental Lords you control with card effects, and also cannot be destroyed by card effects. Once per turn, you contribute 1 monster, special summon Elementsaber monster from your deck with a different original attribute than the monster. You can send this face-up card from the field to the graveyard to discard your entire hand, then add Elemental Lord monsters from your graveyard to your hand equal to the number of cards discarded. Moving on to the extra deck. I run 2 Isolde. Isolde is easily the best warrior link monster in the game. When it is link summoned, you can add 1 warrior monster from your deck to your hand. Although you cannot normal or special summon monsters with that name or activate that monster's effects for the rest of the turn. Which doesn't really matter, because the main thing like you probably do with this is you would normal summon Aina. And let's say you have it solely on the field and you added the Makini, you can use Aina's effect to discard it. So literally you have something to discard to deactivate the Aina effect. Now as the secondary effect, which I talked about earlier, you can send any number of equipped spells with different names from your deck to the graveyard. Special summon 1 warrior monster from your deck whose level equals the number of cards sent to the graveyard. Since you run 3, you can special summon a level 3. Most oftentimes, you can easily get out 1 of your Elementsabers, or you can also use it to get out your Aqua Dolphin. I run the 1 Predaplant Verte Anaconda for Dragoon Place, the 1 Salamangreat Almirage, the 1 Barricade Board Blocker. I do run a IP package with IP Masquerena, Nightmare Phoenix, and Nightmare Unicorn. I also run 1 Area the Water Charmer and Lynn the Light Charmer. I don't really go into these much as often. I just had 2 extra spots. I'm like, I don't really know what else I could throw in there. I run an Appaloosa and an Access Code to round out the links. For fusions, I run the Red Eyes Dark Dragoon. And for XCs, I run 1 Abyss Dweller and 1 Zeus to round out the extra deck. Now, let me know what you think of it. Do you think it's Elementsabers is a pretty good deck? Do you think it has potential? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video I make. Bye.